So, I haven't really made a video in a while, so I'm going to make one. I want to talk a little bit about how I DM. So, I have jumped back into DMing maybe 6 months ago. Pretty much everything is on the YouTube channel, and I think maybe we're on our 26th or 27th session in my campaign. It's a lot of fun, but I still make a lot of mistakes, and it's the first campaign that I've run going off of actual 5e rules, just 5e. There's a couple of mistakes I made. One of the big ones was I accidentally misread some of the opportunity of attack rules, so we're using 4th edition. Other than that, I think most everything is as close as I was able to get. There's a couple fuck ups, but mostly what I was able to get to 5th edition. Because once I make a ruling, I try to stick with it, especially if I fucked it up for a lot of sessions. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't go back on any of my rulings and that things stay consistent. So a lot of that's just something I like. Now, when I'm DMing, I'm a mixture of prep and improvisation. My improv is more of like I have a couple things that I want going forward, and so I just keep those in the back of my mind. So when the players do something that is wild, I try to find a way to make it connect to one of those things in the background. And then I have the stuff I've prepped for, which is my overall, like, hey, these are the bad guys here, or at least the big bad guys, the ones that the players don't make that are just there. And then some of the, like, the big items or the timeline or the time frame. And then, like, who's messing with who? Because in my world, it's not just the bad guy and the players. There maybe I like to have 2 or 3 random factions or 2 or 3 bad guys fighting to the goal, because I think that that makes sense. I don't want to have just one big bad guy. I want to have multiple bad guys along the way. And well, if the players are trying to get to the ultimate bad guy, well, those other bad guys might get in the way because maybe that's what they're trying to do. So those are kind of the two ways that I'm playing my game. I'm a lot of it's going to be improvisation, and a lot of it's going to be, well, a smaller amount is going to be on prep. I prep the overall big points, and however the players get there, it's whatever. Secondly, I like to do milestone. I don't like counting experience. I think the players might like counting experience, but I don't care. I like quick, consistent. I don't choose the miles. Well, I do choose the milestones, but I don't choose when they happen. So I give a milestone for any major push in the story, defeating a bad guy, solving a problem, um, and all the party, whether they're there when that's solved or not, gets credit for it because they helped lead up to it. So no matter what happens, I don't have under level players. I don't have to count how much experience. I don't have to calculate how much experience I'm giving, especially if I'm like messing with monster stats or homebrewing some stuff. I don't want to have to like, okay, well, I added this CR 19 ability to this CR 15 creature, so it's not really a CR 15 creature. It's like a CR 17, so I'm going to give a CR 17 worth of experience. I don't like that. I'm not going to do that. It's just easier for me to do milestone. One of my sessions, this is also there's a lot more milestones in this campaign I'm doing because I'm trying to get my players to level 20. I want to test the system, and from what I've heard, most players only go to level 8, and I want us to have a good feeling what it's like to be up there and what to prep for and how to look into our abilities and play, as well as how for me to DM to that level. It's really hard. I've actually had to take a 2 week break to prep because my players are hitting level 14 or 15, and it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of abilities. There's a lot of, you know, they've got to spend a lot of time reading their stuff, and I have to spend some time reading into their stuff. Now, that moves on to the next thing. I don't build my encounters specifically against my players. I might take into account their skill level, but I don't take into account their character's abilities. Um, Not completely. Like I don't build my encounter. Oh, my character, my one of my PCs has like smite, and it does this amount of damage. I'm not gonna make my encounter heavier for that because I believe that the world around them grows regardless of whether they're there or not. They're all moving on. The creatures are doing whatever they're doing. Now the players can go fight it, and they could also run away. Now, if I think that they're going to need to run away, I'm going to put some big hints in there. And if they miss it, there's usually a way out somehow. Now, If they stay and decide to keep fighting that thing, they're going to die. Um, but I've talked to my players about that going forward. One of the big things about this session, I was like, hey, this campaign, I was like, hey, this is going to be a hardcore game. Like, I like Grimdark. I like this isn't quite Grimdark, but it's pretty close. I'm pretty strict with my players, as on what's going on. The consequences of their actions are huge. So, because I've had to do a lot of like hardcore stuff, my players are a little more paranoid. But because of that, I don't really have to take into account what classes they're playing. Now, that's just my thing. I like doing it. It's fun. I enjoy it, and I think they're having a lot of fun. So, with that, Milestone has led me to kind of just have a lot of fun with it. And um, me not having to prep for their abilities saves me time. I will take them into account. If one of my players has like divine intervention, really powerful ability. If it procs, it's going to change the whole way my campaign runs. You can't really prep for that. I can rules lawyer that to death and like limit that ability, but I'm not going to do that because it's a super cool ability. He should be able to use it. Now I'm going to pretty strictly read it and roll from there, but I'm not going to stop him from being allowed to do it. And I think it's going to work out pretty well. Now, next thing, I've got kind of two overall plot points for this. One of those things is I want to test the system, and I want this to be a hardcore game. Those are my campaign goals. Before I do anything, that's my goals. Each session, I have 3 goals. I want every player to be able to participate to some degree and have an effect on the story. 2, I want to make sure that consequences of their characters' actions or things that are happening in the world, not just their consequences, but things happen in the world, are communicated in the story that we're telling. And 3rd, I want to have good story pacing, like when somebody's reading a book. I want there to be highs and lows in my sessions. Now, that doesn't mean we're having 2 or 3 combats a session, but I want every few minutes there to be some sort of excitement. That might be a consequence of their actions popping up. There might just be a weird timing of an event happening after they've been talking for 30 minutes. And I think it's fun that way. I really enjoy it, and I think they enjoy it. So that's kind of how I'm prepping. I'm prepping for those 5 things from the campaign into the session, and then it's a combination of improvisation and planning. Now, I think going forward with 5e, there's a couple house rules I'm going to do, not because I completely hate the system. I don't. It's the simplest version of D&D, super new player friendly, and I probably will keep using it. I don't know about the D&D 1 rules yet. I haven't been playing D&D enough to really decide that we're going to test those. But we probably have maybe 5 to 10 sessions left in this campaign, depending on how they do, or if they bite at the Skippy plot line a little bit more, if that's something that you want to continue doing. Because I'm already going to start prepping for my Cyberpunk like 1 sheet. So I have a system of rules I've written up, my dad wrote them up, and then I've just re-edited them to the way that I like them. And we might be running we probably are running a Cyberpunk campaign with that set of rules. It's not really D&D, but I'm going to call it D&D anyway because it's an RPG, and I'm used to RPGs being called D&D. So that's probably the next session. I'm going to really have a lot of fun with that, especially since I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk games, and Cyberpunk's kind of in the spotlight right now. With that, I think with Chris DMing his current session, we'll do 2 sessions of that. I'll do 2 of mine, maybe 3 of mine, and we'll do 1 of his, just to give me a little break to prep now that we're in the higher levels. I think that it'll be best. It'll turn out some of the better sessions, at least on my end. There was a point where when I moved the setup and we had the table long ways, I had a problem talking to everybody around the table because I was used to talking to like more of a cone from me. So player here, player here, player here, player here, versus now it's player here, player here, player here, player here, and player here. Sometimes 2 players here. So I think it'll be a good time. Another thing with my channel, at least, that I want to start doing, I'm going to try to do more shorts. I'm going to try to do a couple more videos A lot less phone fighting, unfortunately, due to my job, but more D&D centric stuff. I'll probably go back and edit a lot, or like make little shorts out of some of the old fighting videos that I have, at least until I can get out and fight. Right now, most likely I'll only be able to get out to fight to do maybe once a month, possibly twice a month. D&D is the big thing going forward. I was messing with streaming. I might do some streaming of like some of the lower graphically intense games since I don't have a great computer yet. But yeah, that's really how I am and a little bit of how the channel is going forward. Thank you guys, and thank you to all the new people who joined. I know I got lucky in one of my shorts went a little bit viral, so most of you guys are new here, and thank you for subscribing, and hopefully you like D&D because it's what I'm going to do. Have a good night.